welcome to Felix Day Live. My name's Chris, and we're here tonight with something a bit different. We've got our friends again from Toothless in England. The actual organisation that we know about here in Felix Day is Toothless in Suffolk, but in fact, the organisation it's become national. It's now Toothless in England, and there are a lot of people and a lot of areas that are in the same situation with a lack of dental service, if you like, with a lack of dental surgeons, and in reality with a lot of people suffering, mainly simply because our government and the NHS are failing to fund dentistry. I think that's pretty straightforward. I've got with me today 4 people, and possibly another one in a moment, I hope. And those people are all from Toothless organisations. Let's see who I've got. I've got Mark Jones, who everybody will know. I've got Dan, who at the moment nobody here knows, but they'll all know you soon, Dan. Don't worry about it. He's from Manchester. We've got Liam, who's from, I've forgotten where you're from, Ian. Liam?
London,
well, thank you, mate. Then we've got Simon, who's from Huntingdon. And then we have another person who I'm going to hope is going to appear now. And this is Nikki. Nikki, can you speak to me?
Can you hear me at all?
I can. My goodness, yay! I'm so pleased. Well, we're live on Felix Day Live. We're live on Toothless in Suffolk, and we're also live on on Homemade TV. Sorry, too many things happen at the moment. She's a very sensible lady. She's got the same as me, a mug of tea. What I'm going to do, I think, is make a start by actually just having a look to see who's watching us tonight. We've got a number of people watching us tonight. We've got, let's see, Carlos King. We've got someone who we don't know. Oh, well, okay, hi. And we've got lots of people, of course. I suppose the reality, I'm not having to go, but Felix Day Live has become a huge kind of channel, and the reality is that lots of people know. I hope we will find some people from Toothless to talk to us as well. I'm going to start off by getting young Mark Jones to kind of give us an update, and then we'll come and do a round robin of everybody else that's on the screen. So let's make a start with you, young Mark. Oh, I see. I've just done something stupid, but I can change that. There we go. Mark, good evening to you. Nice to see you again.
How are you?
How are things? Good.
Good, yeah, very good. Busy week last week. Loads of things going on to do with the campaign, and I'll just summarise those for you. On Thursday, we lobbied MPs in Parliament in Westminster, and we met with Peter Aldous MP, who's the neighbouring MP up the coast from us, Chris, up in Lowestoft, Waveney, and he's been championing, the dental crisis, making big noises about what's happening in his constituency, how it's affecting his constituents. And this came about as a debate which was tabled by himself and Judith Cummins, who is Labour MP for South Bradford, I think, memory serves me right. So it was a cross-party debate in Westminster Hall, and attended by around about 27, 28 MPs. Lasted around about 2.5, 3 hours, the debate. So there was that. We met with Peter Aldous, had a long chat with him. We also, on Thursday, launched Toothless in London. I'm pleased to have Liam here, who's leading that campaign. So it's just under a week old. But yes, London has issues with dentistry. And on Friday, we met, myself and Steve Marsling met with the head of commissioning NHS East of England. And I can tell you a little bit about that whenever you like, a little bit later if you like.
Okay. The thing that let me just get. There we go. That's better. The thing I wanted to first of all do is actually get people to tell us what their experiences are around the country, because the reality is that we all kind of live in our own little bubbles, don't we? And in fact, I'd like to get people to say what's happening. I'll give you a little anecdote from this end of the spectrum. I haven't seen a dentist for 2 years. Partially because I just found it very difficult. And a few months ago, 6 months ago, I made an appointment to go and see my dentist. And 6 months later, on the 1st of March, I've got my appointment and I'm going to see my dentist. Now, it's one of the My Dentist chain, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I've got a tooth that needs coming out, but it's problematic because of other areas. And I'm fascinated to see what they do, because my impression is that they're going to stitch me up because I need a bit of work doing, because I've left it for 2 years. I think they're going to have me over, as the phrase goes. But we'll see. Who knows? We'll see, and I'll report back to you and let you know what's happened with that. Okay, so let me come back to you, Mark, and we'll now get you to introduce people, if you would. And I'm just doing something stupid again. There we go. I have to resolve my personal issues with doing the wrong button. So first of all, Mark, would you tell us about one of our guys here, and perhaps the person who's been with Toothless the longest?
Okay, so well, that'll be Nikki. Nikki contacted me some months ago now, as many people contact us on our Toothless in Suffolk group. And these are people from all around the country, but Nikki's from Norfolk, and she had real problems. She'll tell you about, of course, but Nikki has done a fantastic job of leading the charge up in Norfolk. So we've got Toothless in Norfolk campaign. So I'll hand over to Nikki now, and she can explain how she got involved and how the campaign is going and where it's heading. Over to you.
Okay, Nikki.
Hi. Yeah, oh, thank you. Am I okay to go?
Yeah, go.
Yeah, I was having some awful issues for quite a while, and because of the pandemic and the lockdowns, obviously dentists weren't able to see us for a very long time. And then when they were finally able to see us, there were no appointments available for anyone. When I finally was able to sort of get in touch with my dentist that I had been registered with for a very long time, it turned out that I had been deregistered throughout the pandemic, which right. Shocked me. But obviously, you know, over 2 years had gone by, I'd not been seen. And only later on, I found out dentists are actually not obliged to keep you registered on their books. It's only a sign of goodwill that they remain keeping you on their books, even if a treatment has been completed. So if you've had filling done, they're obliged to really treat you throughout the treatment of that particular filling, but after that, they can just throw you by the wayside. They don't have to keep you, which I never understood. I thought if you're registered, you're registered. So it was all a big learning curve, and obviously I was really stuck. I had a bit of a filling fallout with all the extra flossing because I had that big gap between my teeth. One of my crowns fell out. Then I was stuck now with a crown that I had to keep trying to shove back in with tooth cement you can buy from the chemist, which is not ideal. I had been doing that for quite a while because I just could not find any appointment anywhere. I had phoned as far afield as London to try and see a dentist, and I could not find any NHS dentist who would see me. I then realized I had to go private because I was in excruciating pain. I was actually taking overdoses of painkillers because the painkillers weren't working, and you can't buy anything from a pharmacy other than paracetamol or cocodamol without a prescription. And cocodamol obviously can be addictive, so you really should not be taking much of that. In the end, I phoned 111. I said, look, I'm climbing the walls. I don't know what to do. I finally got to see a private dentist who charged me £85 for the consultation and x-ray. he was not able to extract the tooth at the time. He then quoted me another £185 to extract the tooth at a later date. Came home really upset and still in pain. I was even worse off. I now had a big gap in the front of my mouth as well as pain, because he wouldn't put the crown back in. The tooth had split. The root had split. As luck would have it, the next morning, put on the local news, BBC Look East, and I heard about Toothless in Suffolk. And I said, wow, I never knew these people existed. That is a wonderful idea. Looked them up on their website, saw the advertisement for the Dentate truck that was going to be coming to Lowestoft the very next week, or Ipswich, sorry. And I said, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. Got in my car the second day of treatment, got there early in the morning, and before they even opened their doors, all the appointments had been booked out. There was that much need for it. I then had the tooth extracted. Thank goodness, I no longer was in pain, but I still had a big hole in the front of my mouth. So I have been forced to go private. But until I was in that situation, I never ever realized what a problem this is. And since I've become involved, so many people, it's heartbreaking to hear children and elderly people that, elderly people have paid all their lives. They've been to war. They've given us the freedom that we are enjoying in our country today, and we cannot even get them to have the treatment they need so desperately.
Okay, so can I ask if Nikki, if you've had what experience you've had in Norfolk with actually starting your own group? You've started your own group there?
Well, I was sort of humming and hawing a bit because I thought, oh, I'm sure somebody more able-bodied will come forward. I don't think I can do this. Have I got the time? Somebody else would do a better job. But I think a lot of people feel that way. And I just decided I'm going to bite the bullet. Mark was so helpful. I emailed him. I messaged him on Facebook and I said, look, I think I want to start it up. And he said, whatever help I need, anything, just ask. And he really has been a great help. Him and Darren Turner. The both of them have been exceptional help to us, and it helps also that we're fairly close by, I think, because we are in very similar catchment area and have very similar situations within our two counties. So yeah, I just set up the Facebook page, and within a couple of hours we had over 400 members already, and we hadn't even tried to advertise the group yet. We've now set up a Twitter as well. I'm not very good with that kind of thing, but again, Mark is helping with that. So it is slowly growing, but the amount of people that are saying to me in private messages and on the group as well, that they wish they'd have known about us earlier. And again, we are hoping once the weather breaks to start becoming more visible on the streets, boots on the ground, basically, rather than just hiding behind a Facebook group. We want to get out there for people to see us, to meet us, to be able to see that there is somebody that cares, someone in their corner that they can actually see and speak to.
Okay, that's excellent. I'll come back to Mark now. Mark, it's all over to you.
Thanks.
Who's next?
Yeah, so I'd like to bring in Simon. Simon is running the Toothless in Huntingdon campaign, and the Huntingdon area. Well, I'll let Simon explain the sort of catchment area for that. But again, it's an area of the country that is quite rural, just like Suffolk and Norfolk, and suffering from the same issues. Again, it's a campaign that is growing in number. People are getting more and more aware of it. So I'll just hand over to Simon now.
Right. Yeah, I started I first heard of the Toothless campaign through the old Facebook grapevine, and I saw that the Toothless in Suffolk were having a demonstration in Bury St Edmunds. So I decided to go along to that and see what was what, really. Off the back of that, I thought, well, if this problem is here, is it going to be elsewhere? So I did a bit of investigation myself around Huntingdon. So all the areas around Huntingdon, Godmanchester, St Neots, Ramsey, all these little villages around here. Did a little bit of investigation. I think I contacted about 15 dentists in the end. And out of 15 dentists at the time, only one was taking on NHS patients, and they were only taking on children. So off the back of that, I got in contact with Mark and started the Facebook group and the Twitter campaign.
And how are you finding things? How are things going up there in Huntingdon now?
Well, the campaign's slowly growing, so that's doing quite well. The general problem we have around here is that people just can't get access to an NHS dentist. I think a lot of people have just sort of bit the bullet and, well, from what they've told us, they've bit the bullet and gone private. They've had no other choice.
It's pretty horrendous, isn't it, really? I mean, people in general, I think the reality is that a lot of people have got dental plans and things like that. Dent plan is the big one, isn't it? They've got dental plans and stuff like that if you're quite well off. But if you're an ordinary person like most of us, then really we don't have it in our back pockets to go and spend £1,000 on dentistry whenever we need it. You know, that's the issue, isn't it? Mark, continue, please.
Yeah, so we're gradually making our way westwards here, and we're going to go up to the north of the country, to Manchester now, and we're going to hand over to Dan, who's one of a strong contingent in Manchester, dotted all around Manchester, who have really grasped, got involved quite heavily in doing lots of research behind the scenes, making contacts, putting out street stalls, etc. And Manchester is one of the newer campaign groups. I think, well, Dan could correct me, I think it started at the beginning of the year. Yeah, let's just hand over to Dan.
It's all yours, Dan.
Thanks very much. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks very much for having us on as well. Yeah, Mark, you're quite right. The campaign in Manchester really only began, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks ago. So it was on the turn of the year. The challenges that we faced up here were quite different, I think, to the campaign in Suffolk and in the east of England. But what I mean by that is geographical spread of people up here is much more concentrated. So the issues that were faced in Suffolk, really, which was a case of if a dentist's surgery had closed, that was really quite catastrophic for the local area. Our focus was slightly different. There are dentists everywhere around the region. We cover quite a large area, Greater Manchester. The issue that we had, and one of the very first things that we undertook at the commencement of the campaign, was to try to contact as many dentistry surgeries around the region as we could to sort of garner some information as to what NHS services were actually available. I mean, quite remarkably, to this day, despite this ongoing endeavour, we haven't contacted a single surgery that's actually offering NHS care at all in the area. We've been focusing quite a lot on raising our profile in the region as well, and we're really trying to sort of get our name better recognised in the north of England and in the northwest particularly. So we're focusing quite a lot on social media. Remarkably, we've had an awful lot of testimonials from people already. I mean, some of them are really quite harrowing, and they stretch from, I would say, from the really quite serious to sort of, I think, quite ridiculous stories of young people with very and earnestly treatable gum diseases and things like that, which require sort of regular care due to a tremendous backlog of work due to the pandemic over the past 2 years. This very sort of elementary care has ended up with some people. In the case of one testimonial, have had 2 of their front teeth taken out. I mean, it's really quite a catastrophic and jaw-dropping scenario that you're finding for people. This young lady is only 22 years old, so you can see how this snowballs into really quite serious circumstances for people like that. I mean, we understand really as well that in the past 2 years, particularly because of the impact of the pandemic and the waiting lists, I understand there's been a 6-fold increase in the number of inquiries from people looking for emergency NHS care. And for a city the size of Manchester, it's really, I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I've been quite surprised at the response that we've had from people and really the lack of availability of care in the area.
When you look at your area, what kind of numbers of people have you got on your Facebook group? Are you getting good numbers? Is there a way that we on this show, for instance, can help you to increase that?
Oh, absolutely. This is obviously part of the reason why we want to get this sort of exposure. The last time I checked the Facebook page, which I think was towards the end of last week, we had in excess of 80 people. It could well have gone over the 100 followers now. So we're certainly building a following.
Excellent. Okay, excellent. I'll go back to Mark. Mark.
Thanks for that, Dan. So we've now moved down to the capital city, from one major city to the capital city. London, over the years, has struggled again. Just as really what Dan was, it sort of reflects what Dan was saying, and that capacity, NHS dental capacity in Manchester. It's reflected the same in Newcastle, the same in Liverpool, and in London isn't matching demand, and that's the key part. And I'll introduce you now to Liam, who, as I mentioned at the introduction here, London campaign launched last Thursday in Parliament Square. And we're absolutely thrilled to have Liam join the campaign. And it's, in the early stages, in the embryonic stages of the campaign, but we know that it will pick up speed. So I'll hand you over to Liam.
Hi, I'm Liam. I think just to reflect on the stories behind this as well, I reached out to Mark because I myself couldn't find a dentist. I've been living in London for years, and it's really amazing that we heard this term in the news recently called dental deserts, and I think that really reflects the issue that London's facing, not necessarily because there aren't enough dentists. There are plenty of dentists out there. There's just not enough dentists practicing for NHS contracts, and that's the real sticking point. In London, with especially a lot of movements for redevelopments and concentrations of rich areas versus poor areas, there is a lot of sticking points around that in terms of this infrastructure not being built to allow accessible NHS dentistry. And I think within London as well, it's a real hot pot for people moving around. So people lose their dental registration quite easily in terms of when they're moving. It's not necessarily their first point of call to re-up their dental registrations. That's not something people are really thinking about. There's also a lot of students involved as well. A lot of different migrant communities getting involved as well. So there's a lot of missed opportunity to make sure that people get the access they need towards very vital NHS dentistry. And I work in public health. I have a lot of contacts with the dental schools that are in London, within King's, Queen Mary, and UCL. A lot of the stories that come out of there as well, just for students, it's nearly impossible. Unlike GPs, when you get signed up for university, you get allocated a GP. That's not the case with dentists. It's put up in the sense of it gives you more choice to feel out and find the dentist that you want. But if that dentist isn't there, then that's a useless system. And I think a lot of change needs to happen with that. And I think with London, there was an announcement of nearly £8 million going into it to try and boost up NHS dental appointment numbers because of COVID. But that's just a plaster on the issues that we've faced over the years. And I think a lot of systematic change needs to happen to make sure Londoners can get the dentistry care that they need.
Okay, to be honest with you, and I'll say this to all of you and everybody who's watching, is that this sounds like a horror story, doesn't it, really? It sounds awful in all of those areas, and can we imagine that any other areas are doing better? That's the other question, I guess. Mark, what do you think?
Well, the simple answer to that is no, they're not faring any better, and in many cases they're faring a lot worse. We've had contact from all over, as you know, and I've spoken on your channel before about this situation, about the Toothless campaign. it is stretching across the whole of the country. Every single corner of the country is suffering from a lack of access to NHS dentistry, and that was very evident from the testimony that was given at the debate in Westminster last Thursday. The debate was entitled "Access to NHS Dentistry," and Peter Aldous and Judith Cummins led the debate. And the MPs that stood up to speak to the debate were all crying out for change, radical change. I think there may have been one exception to that, wanting to sort of push it further down the sort of privatisation route. But by and large, I should also say the dentistry minister was there, Maria Caulfield MP, and she listened very intently. I have to, give credit where credit's due. She is listening, but listening needs to turn into action, and that's what we've got to see, and see very quickly. As you know, the BDA are very much leading the charge as far as the profession is concerned to change or call for changes, radical reform, and funding to match that radical reform as well, because here we are in 2022 and there is 30% less funding going into dentistry today than there was in 2010. So yeah, the picture at the moment, we're in a sort of holding pattern almost, while the minister deliberates with various bodies to determine which route to take as far as this is concerned. One thing I would like to add is which we sat in on the debate for the first hour in Westminster Hall. Myself, Liam, who's here, Steve Marsling, and oh my goodness, our expert dentist, Helen Duncan. Name escaped me for a second. I do apologise, Helen, if you're watching. Helen Duncan, and we sat in on the debate, the four of us, and the father of the house, Sir Peter Bottomley, we were waiting outside in the lobby to wait to get ushered in, and as he came up the steps, he said, "Are you the Toothless campaign?" And we said yes. He said, "Well, that's marvellous." He said, "Keep up the good work." He said, "Can I take a photo with you?" And here we are, the father of the house, Sir Peter Bottomley, wanting a selfie. So we had that with Steve and myself. And when he stood up to, oh, here we got a picture of it, stood up to speak to the debate, he referenced the Toothless campaign, the Toothless in England campaign, and turned to Maria Caulfield, who is the minister, as I mentioned. She's the dentist minister. She was sitting next to him in the hall, and he turned to her and said, "I hope you've met with Steve Marsling and Mark Jones, the Toothless campaign. You really need to meet with them if you haven't done already, and hear what the patients want out of this. It's a very good campaign." So that's something we didn't expect. Very welcome. How often do campaigns of our size get mentioned with such high praise and from very senior, a very senior person in the House of Commons?
Right, Mark. I'd like you to do one more thing for me this evening, which is to address a graphic that you sent me yourself, because I don't know whether the other guys on the show have seen this, and it's this. Do you want to talk about this? I mean, this actually completely smacked me in the kisser when I saw this, and I imagine I don't know whether you know about these figures, but or up in there in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, or in Suffolk or wherever, the numbers seem to me to be amazing. Mark, can you just talk about this a little?
Sure. I think what I'll do is this data, very recent data, came out of a report which was published last month, and it covered the last 5 years of practitioners, dental practitioners working on behalf of the NHS, and it gave a picture of each of the 5 years leading up to 2021. And I've just picked out some figures from last year, and from these are the campaign groups that we've got. We've got obviously London, Cambridge and Peterborough. It also encompasses the Huntingdon area. Suffolk, we've got, I should say that CCGs are the commissioning bodies looking after the NHS. London has 5 CCGs, Suffolk has 2. Norfolk and Waveney, obviously part of that, part of Waveney is in Suffolk, but for the most part it's Norfolk. And obviously Newcastle, we've got a Toothless in Newcastle, Toothless in Manchester. Let me deal with the Manchester one, and you're probably thinking, well, look at those big numbers there, but Manchester, why have we got a Toothless campaign in Manchester? Well, I mentioned a little earlier that capacity isn't meeting demand. And although Manchester lost 1 practitioner working for the NHS last year, just in 2021, you think, well, that's no big deal, where's the issue? But again, as Dan was saying, it's the access, and people are needing that access to dentistry, and they're not able to get it with the existing provision. So that's a bit of a false, it gives a false reading of what the situation is in Manchester. But if you could just push up that slide again, Chris. London, just last year, in London, the capital city, 539 dentists left the NHS. That's an extraordinary figure for the capital city. And it is no small wonder that we have a campaign now, and that just shows you the scale of the campaign, the scale of the need for having a campaign in London, highlighting the need. Cambridge and Peterborough, they lost 40, Suffolk 47, Norfolk and Waveney 29, and Newcastle Gateshead CCG 26. Across the country, just under 2,500 dentists stopped providing NHS provision in 2021. Just under 2,500 people now, dentists. So, and I had to sort of challenge Peter Aldous last week, because he and I were on BBC Radio Suffolk on the Thursday morning, and I spoke to Mark Murphy on the breakfast show on the way down to London. There's this sort of theme that some MPs and others will be trolling out, and that is that there's a lack of dentists in the UK. Well, just under 2,500 dentists left providing NHS treatment last year. So, it's not, there's no lack of dentists. It's just a lack of dentists working in the NHS field, and that is all, as I've said repeatedly, and those on the call this evening have said, it's all to do with the contract, and it's unwieldy, unfair, and certainly doesn't. It's not fit for purpose, and it doesn't finance the dentist, doesn't pay them fairly, and that's the reason why they're giving up.
That's pretty horrendous, isn't it? I think that's horrible, and it sounds awful. When 2,500 dentists, how many people does a dentist see a day? I don't know, 10, 20, 30, I don't know. How many do they see a day under normal circumstances, not under COVID, but under normal circumstances? How many people would a dentist see in a day, Mark?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, it could be, well, we've obviously, since the pandemic started, they've reduced their throughput in the surgeries because of the risk from aerosol that's created when they're treating patients. So they're back up to something like 85% capacity at the moment.
Right.
So depending on the work that they're doing, whether it's a checkup day or whether it's a treatment day, that could vary from practice to practice. So I wouldn't want to put a figure on it, but if you're seeing 20 people a day, for instance, you can understand. You multiply that by 2,500. That's quite a number.
That is the thing that I was thinking of, because I found it, the number itself, just the number of bodies who are no longer working with the NHS, but it's the number of people they affect. Because if a dentist sees, let's say, 20 people in a day, they work 5 days a week, that's 100 people who have missed out in a week. And if they've left the profession, they've lost, let's say, what's the period between checks? 6 months, should it be? 9 months? If it's 6 months, then they've lost, goodness knows, that's 2,500 people have lost a dental visit. Which is scary as hell, isn't it?
As I mentioned to you last week, Chris, about the overseas dentists, qualified dentists, qualified overseas, living in this country. And this is not and some mention of this was in the debate last week about EU dentists, how we recognise the EU training. Some mention of Commonwealth trained dentists living over here, but they can't practice. But there are also, there's somewhere in the region of about 2,000 overseas dentists from countries like Iran, Iraq, Tunisia, India, and so forth, who are unable to practice because they've not been through the 2-stage competency exams, and that is a failing from successive governments. Some of them have been waiting 5 years to actually pick up the tools and work, but they haven't been able to because we don't recognise their qualifications, but we would do once we put them through a competency 2-stage competency exam. And that exam is that people are not going through. There's a bottleneck, a very tight bottleneck. So there's a real issue there. So again, this misnomer that there's a shortage of dentists, there isn't. Last week or the week before, Sheffield, there's a dental school in Sheffield, and they had 840 applicants for 71 places. The demand to go into dental schools is there. We just don't have the capacity again to put people through dental school. So it's a real big issue, and it's something that again, I say credit to the MPs who stood from all sides of the House. I think it was probably, if I was to break it down in the debate last week, there was probably around about probably 50% or more Conservative MPs, and the rest were Liberal and Labour MPs, a smattering of them. But all of them were saying how desperate the situation is for their constituents, and something has to be done now.
Okay, what I'd like to do at this point then is say to you all a couple of things. One, I think we haven't done enough publicity on this particular show to see where it went, because I was a bit unconfident about where we were going to go with it. But I'd like to do more with this, with the Toothless in England thing, and we can then share it around everybody. I'd like to ask you all if you would be kind enough to drop me a line, if you would, at Felixstowe Live Facebook page. I think you're all Facebookers. Drop me a line there, and I'll come back to each of you individually. And what I'd like to try and do is to try and start a weekly show that covers the whole of the country and includes you guys and others, and we'll make a better and bigger production of it. To be honest with you, it's as you know, I mean, we're all people who do this as a kind of interest, and as because we're keen to achieve something with this. But I think we need to make it kind of big and noticeable if we can, and we'd do that by getting more and more people involved, and bloody pushing. We've got half a dozen or a dozen people watching on and off at this stage. People fade away as we go along, as you realise. But if we can make this something bigger and something better that hits people in the face, not only will it attract more of an audience, it will also bloody well annoy the people who are blocking the passage, if you like. Are you all interested in that? Wave! Hey! If everybody wants to do that, I'd love to do that. So drop me a line. I'll talk to Mark, but I'm going to say one thing now before we go to the end of the show, because we kind of run out where people kind of go away, as I said. So what I'd like to do is ask each of you in turn to just sum up where you think we should go next and what you think we should do. Can I just do a little round robin and start? Here we go. Who am I going to start with? Who's ready to say something? Not you, Mark, but somebody else. Liam, do you fancy just sort of summing up what you think we should do next and what you would like to do next in London to drive this onwards?
I think in London, just continuing to reach out to communities, especially with the dental schools that are around here, to get their involvement and support for it. I think overall, just following on with the excellent work that Mark's done so far in terms of expanding it across the country and making sure that work is put out there for everyone to see.
That's brilliant, I think. Dan, how do you feel about it all? Let's ask you.
Yeah, I mean, I reiterate what Liam said. I mean, look, this is a grassroots campaign. We need public support. We need familiarity on the ground. Just to very briefly go back to what I was saying earlier as well, we're trying to engage some of our local representatives, MPs and councillors and so forth, and we're getting mixed responses at best. The only way we're going to make any change and any difference here is through public active participation. You know, this is a rich country. This is an important issue. There's no excuse for this ridiculous situation that we have with our dental care in place. So we need to keep battering on, and we need to build up our profile.
I have to say, you're so right. Nikki. Oh, heavens, I did something wrong again, Nikki. I do it all the time, as you know. Because the trouble is, as you know, it's just, you just carry on doing the best you can. But Nikki, give us your summary on where you think we should go next up in Norfolk.
Right, well, what I have found to be very, very helpful at the moment is I was fortunate that the first lot of people I really got in touch with had a lot of contacts in local councils and county councils. They've been bearing the torch for us as well, because a lot of them are in the same situation. Their children don't have dentists either. So I've been very lucky to have the support of a lot of people that already have the MP's ears. And the next step now is to get the people, the actual people on board as well, because even now a lot of people don't know that they can do anything about it. So we really need to get out there and have Joe Public see us, hear about us, and get in behind us. And as I said, when the weather changes, maybe we can start getting those stalls out there, doing our marches, and just writing letters to whoever we can, you know, every MP, every councillor, even dentists, whoever we can think of that could help move forward. We need to get them involved as well.
Thanks, Nikki. Finally, you, Simon.
Well, as it's been said, it's a grassroots campaign. So here in Huntingdon, task is to get out on the streets and to reach as many people as possible. We've already got the ears of a couple of Labour councillors in Huntingdon, which is good. We've got the ear of the press. We want to get a bit more involved with that. But like I say, first and foremost is getting the people on the street involved with the campaign.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Thank you all for that, because I think this has been a really worthwhile little session. I think we haven't had a big audience, but I think we can build a bigger audience and start getting out there to more people if we do this kind of thing on a regular basis. So please do, each of you, drop me a line on Felix Day Live. I'll get Mark to do a little mail out to you to make sure you've got the detail, and then we'll go from there. Mr. Jones, now, as you all know, Mark kind of kicked it off with Steve. Where do we go from here? We need to do more, don't we, really? And it's kind of, it's down to us to all do it, isn't it?
Well, your very kind offer, Chris, is really what this is sort of. The campaign is about people offering a bit of time and investment of their own time in this, and you're very generous, Chris, to offer that to us and offer us a platform for each of us in turn to reach a larger audience, which is absolutely fantastic. My hat off to you, Chris, and thank you for what you're doing and the support you've lent this campaign thus far. But to Dan, to Liam, to Nikki, and to Simon, thank you, each and every one of you, and those that are behind the scenes working. Thank you for what you're doing. None of us are getting paid for this. Some of us have got jobs. Some of us are retired and doing this as because we feel passionate about it. And there is a serious injustice in all of this. The health inequalities in England are massive, and just dentistry is one of them, but it's a hugely important one. Oral health care is really key. Having good oral health is really key to a healthy mind and body, and that's where we've got to push for change, radical change, investment that we haven't seen yet, despite the £50 million offered up the other week. That really isn't going to go anywhere, and the take up of that offer from the government is pretty minimal at the moment, but we'll see. It's still early days, but absolutely crucial. Thanks, my hats off to everybody who's leading a campaign. My hats off to everyone who's supporting the campaign. We need to make a bigger noise, and we will. I'll be writing to Maria Caulfield very soon, asking her to meet with us. Hopefully we'll have representatives from each of the regions that are not only here tonight, but those that will likely to be set up in the coming weeks across the country. So thanks to everybody. Please support us. Please invite people to join our campaign. Press your MP, press the councillors. You know, we need to do a lot more. We need to make a bigger noise about this. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I think this message from a Facebook user sums it up. Keep fighting and bring back the NHS. I think that's a pretty good message. And lady and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all for being on the show tonight. I'd love to see you again, and we'll do more with Toothless and try and make a bigger impact and get a few more people watching and annoy some politicians, because the only time we can get politicians to do stuff is if we become a pain to them, and let's do that. Mark, Liam, Dan, Nikki, Simon, thank you so much for doing this. I'm now going to say to everybody out there who's watching this, don't forget we've had a smallish number of people watching this while it's been live, but after it's live, it stays online. It's on Facebook, it's on YouTube. You can share it on Facebook, you can share it from YouTube, and share it around the place, and people will watch it, and we'll build up a few hundred and maybe a few thousand views. Okay, so I'll say to you now, and this is to everybody who has, will, or may watch, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to the contributors to the show for being on. I'm Chris. This is Felix Day Live, working with Toothless in England, and we will see you soon. Okay, take care.